You're listening to the Gabriel Molina podcast.
Well, welcome. And if you have listened to this because you're expecting to hear the Gabriel Molina podcast, you're in the right place.
Yeah.
We're just kind of switching things up a little bit, and we're going to see if we can find out a little bit more about your host, Gabe.
Oh, I'm real uncomfortable right now, Bill.
Well, I think that's probably a good thing. So, how you doing? I guess, first of all, how does it feel to be on the other side of the table?
You know, it's kind of weird. It's distracting because I've got this huge window that now I'm looking through. Mm-hmm. And typically I can focus because there's nothing behind me or the guest. It's pretty distracting for you guys. So see how well I can keep focused.
Okay. Well,
now, my wife will tell me that this is my favorite subject, talking about me. But we'll see how it goes. I'm a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, okay. Well, good. Let's see if we can expand that a little bit.
Make me more uncomfortable.
Yeah. So, podcasting, huh? How long have you been doing this?
Oh, I want to say this is the third year. I want to say in November it'll be 3 years. And, initially, and I think we may have talked about it before, I was just working a lot. Wasn't doing much, was a little bit, I hate to use the word depressed, but I would say blue. A little confused, not really, things hadn't gone the way I had anticipated life to go as far as, starting a family, all that good stuff. So I found myself in this weird place where I was kind of like, well, I dedicated myself to a career and life because I was expecting children, right? And we had issues trying to have kids. We weren't able to, which it happens a lot. That was weird to do that, but didn't want to get the table dirty. But so I kind of found myself in this little funk where I was like, okay, I'm not crazy about what I do for a living, but I was willing to do it for reasons, right? And so I was just kind of doing my thing, being bored and a little blue at times. And then lost my older brother, Eddie. So my older brother, Eddie, passed away, man, I can't remember now. It's maybe 3 or 4 years. But shortly after that, it was kind of like, I love listening to podcasts. Of course, Joe Rogan's got the biggest one, and he always has some really cool guests. And it was, I hate reading, Bill. I can't stand reading. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to. I'm reading Victor Avila's book right now. But to me, podcast was almost like reading a book, but not having to read anything. You were getting information, you were learning things, you were hearing perspectives, you were hearing stories, and I could do it while I was working. So I always thought that was cool. And after my brother Eddie passed away, I was really bummed, and to say the least. And my dad, I'm sure my siblings would call his cell phone to listen to his voice on the voicemail, and I'd record it and you'd listen to it from time to time. And I told my wife, I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna start a podcast. I'm gonna go interview my parents, my friends, and to me it was, I want to make something so that in a morbid kind of way, for the next of us that dies, at least we'll have a conversation. We'll be able to hear their voice. The biggest thing was my dad's always had some medical issues here last few years. So to me, he lived a life that his great-grandkids aren't going to have to live, hopefully. So I always hoped that this was a means for them to be able to hear his stories when they were old enough to appreciate it, right? Yeah. So that's always been the goal with the podcast. If I never created the podcast, I would still do this, and I would save them on a hard drive and put them in a safe somewhere, and I would still do this, right? But then it got kind of fun. I did one of those few buddies early on. There was Ryan and James and a few other folks, Bob. And I get other friends of mine would reach out and they'd say, hey man, I really got something out of this. It was really interesting to hear that person tell their story. I have some similarity there, Mm-hmm. And so after a while I was like, well, let me just put this out. Let me put it on Spotify and wherever else. I've got it all over the place. And so that's kind of how it evolved into putting it, on the web, so to speak.
Yeah.
And is there any money in this? Hell no, Bob. Bill? I was thinking Bob Strauss. Hell no, Bill. But I enjoy it, and it kind of got me out of that little funk where I wasn't doing anything. Yeah. You get older, you've got a lot of friends, you get older, and people start families, you have things going on, and you interact less, Mm-hmm. And if you don't when you're a kid, it's effortless to hang out with your friends. When you're an adult, you got to put forth effort, right?
Right.
And so this was kind of a way for me to drag some people in here too and hang out with me, So that's kind of how all that started. And it's been, like I said, it's going about 3 years now. I think this will be number 65. And I'll be honest with you, I've enjoyed them all. Mm-hmm. I've done a few podcasts with folks where it was kind of like, I met through a friend or something. And I always tell Nina, I said, it's crazy because I'm like, okay, I'll do a podcast with you. I'd love to hear your story, And even though, like, sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm going to record with Bob. I get real excited to record with Bob. Bob used to be a musician, or he still is a musician. He runs a Narcotics Anonymous facility in South Texas, and he's helping people. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting, right? I get excited.
Yeah.
And there's been some people where I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, I'll put them on the podcast. And it's so funny because there's so many times when I do that, and I don't want to sound negative, but like my expectations aren't as high as that might be with somebody who has the life experiences of Bob. But it always turns out awesome. I'll go home and I'll tell Nina, I was like, that was so cool. I'm so glad I did it with that person. I wasn't coming in at a level 10. Maybe I was coming in at an 8 or 7. I was like, but I left at a 10. It was awesome. So mm-hmm. I've slowly learned to just be cool about it. It's mm-hmm. Everybody's got a cool story. Everybody's got something interesting. And if you give an opportunity to tell it, you might learn something. And that's kind of where I find myself these days, is just going with it and learning something.
Okay, good. Well, excellent segue. What have you learned?
What I've learned to begin with, and we talked about this earlier, patience. Mm-hmm. I've always been told by my lovely significant area that I don't listen. I just wait to talk. And I always thought she was stupid for saying that, Bob. Bill, I keep calling you Bob. I got Bob in the brain. I always thought that was stupid until I started this podcast. Mm-hmm. And in the middle of one of the early ones, I remember thinking, man, I really am just waiting to talk. So that was the first one. Another one is I'm kind of ornery. Mm-hmm. We talked earlier. I'm not very gray. I do black or white. Yeah. And I wish I did more gray. I'm either in or out. I'm very little patience for things that I'm not willing to be patient for. Mm-hmm. And so I've learned to be patient with people, to give them an opportunity to tell their story, because when I'm not patient, I'm cutting people off, and people can tell when you're not being patient with them, and they become more guarded with you. Mm-hmm. When they see that you're patient, when they see that you're willing to listen to them, they're willing to share more. And ultimately, I'm the one that benefits from that because I'm gaining knowledge. It's a guest's opportunity to tell their story, but we've got cameras here, we've got microphones, and we're going to put on the internet. But ultimately, it's my opportunity to learn something. I had a cupcake life, literally. I told you, my parents were in a decent place when I was old enough to remember. My dad was there, my mom was there. Dad was a heavy disciplinarian, which was what I needed because I'm So slacker-offer, if that's a word. So
it is now.
In hindsight, I always thought my dad was mean. But in hindsight, it was like, I think he just matched my laziness.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it gives me an opportunity to learn from folks. it, in a weird way, it gives me the knowledge of experiences that I haven't had to endure. Mm-hmm. And selfishly, I'm the lucky one for that. You know, I'm the one that gets to get the knowledge from somebody that's been through drug addiction or abuse or loneliness or depression or whatever it is, you know. Now, granted, am I equal to them in that knowledge base? No. But I get an opportunity to learn from them without having to endure those ugly things. Yeah. And not all the conversations are bad. Some of them are fun. Some of them are funny. Some of them are just acting stupid and having a good time. Yeah. You know, and that's always good for laughs, and laughs are important, you know. So there's that. I think ultimately it's that, though, is being able to gain knowledge from experiences that weren't mine, you know, and I'm thankful for that.
So how has doing this podcast influenced your life?
I think I try and be a better person to people. I'm still ornery. But I've learned to be more patient with folks that aren't exactly like me. You know, I've never been the type of person that will look at a lifestyle and go, I don't want anything to do with that, and immediately treat some people bad. Mm-hmm. I immediately want to treat you nice. And this is kind of a screwed up thing to say, Bill. But I like to treat people nice because there's a little bit of me that can't wait to treat you bad, right? And so if I treat you nice and you turn out to be a jerk, I start to salivate, Bill, because I'm like, I can't wait for this. Because I grew up with my siblings like that. We're always hacking on each other. Mm-hmm. We're always seeing who could push the other person's buttons. And I don't get that anymore. And I don't do it a lot, right? As an adult, I don't do it a lot. But I kind of love when I come across somebody who isn't a nice person, because I enjoy a little bit of conflict. But for the most part, you know, you get older, you lose those fires, you lose one in the fight every fight. You know, you just start to pick your battles and you wait to see, you know, which one's worth fighting. But I've always tried to, you know, be decent to people, and right off the bat, you know, I one thing that I think that I've always disliked is grouping people, right? We tend, especially like today, we like to group people into this group, that group. Right. And we were talking about the public school system earlier, you know. Mm-hmm. Even when I was a kid, you know, there was this broad brush and zero tolerance. And even back then, I always thought, well, why don't we just look at the situation, you know, the people involved in the situation. Yeah. And so I like to invest more in the people, right? Mm-hmm. So whatever your background is, whatever you've got going on in your life is less important to me than how you behave, how you treat me, and how you treat others, right? And so to me, that takes effort. You know, a lot of people don't want to do the effort. Right. They want to say, oh, Bill likes, you know, pink sandals. I can't stand pink sandals, so I can't stand Bill. Right. And I like to go, man, I really like Bill. He likes to wear pink sandals, but I really like Bill.
So you found out about my pink sandals?
Yeah, huh? Well, you know, Andre sent me a picture, so. But
okay, good. If you were advising someone who wanted to get into this sort of broadcasting, what would you advise them to do or not do?
Well, you know, I don't always give the best advice. I guess my only true advice would be to just do it, you know, just to start one. You know, for me, I was talking to some friends. We did the Project Schoolhouse podcast with a friend of mine, Shannon. And I love to talk myself out of doing things. Like I will literally sit there watching 90 Day Fiance going, man, I'd like to start this. And then throughout the show, I'm sitting there thinking about this. And I find all the bumps in the road. And I go, I can't do that. And I turn off the idea, you know. And she said something to me that kind of resonated when she said, don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. And so just because you can't do something perfectly doesn't mean you shouldn't do it.
Right.
You know, and that's something I've always struggled with. You know, I've had conversations with a lot of people, and anytime they talk about negative aspects, I sit there and I quietly and I go, "Oh man, those are my qualities." So to do it, you know, even just to get started, and I even go so far as to go, okay, what do I want my end product to be? And then I find out I do not have that kind of money. So I start backing off of it. And usually that's where I turn off the idea, you know, but eventually I kind of, some hiccups, figured some things out, utilized equipment I already had that I didn't realize I could utilize, and then just started doing it. And I learned that even when I put out the latest ones, I sit there and I go, I wish that looked better, or I wish that camera was centered differently, or I wish X, Y, and Z, you know. And it's taken me a long time to just get over the fact of things don't have to be perfect, you know. I forget there's a Japanese word. I saw David Lee Roth talk about it. Mm-hmm. And apparently the Japanese have a word for perfection in imperfection. And Google it, because I don't know what it is off the top of my head. Mm-hmm. But when I heard that, I was like, that's pretty cool that there is a language that has a word for that. You know, and it's slowly I've kind of come off of stopping myself from doing things because I'm worried that it's not going to be the way I want it to be, you know. So I'm learning to not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. So my advice to people is just go do it, whether it's with your cell phone, even if you're just recording off your cell phone. Eventually, if you get some extra cash, buy some more equipment. But if you enjoy conversation, if you enjoy education, you would love this, you know. And for a while, I kind of got on this little high, right, where you're going and watching, you know, all your views and your likes and things like that, because there's that little dopamine kick when you get that, and you're like, oh man, you know, I got one more.
I got a like.
And you know, now I'll be honest with you, I don't even look at that stuff. Like, I put it out, and I think more of, what do I want to put out? You know, who do I really like that I want other people to like, you know? And so it kind of turned from promoting myself to promoting the podcast to promoting just cool people that I think you should know, you know? And I've really enjoyed that part of it, you know, because slowly it's almost like networking, right? It's a digital networking, I guess. So that's been fun.
Very good, very good. Now, I've noticed in your choice of language.
I haven't cussed yet.
My
dad might listen to this one.
Oh, okay. Okay. But more than one time, you've mentioned things in the sense of roadblocks or something that kept you from moving forward on an idea or something of that nature. So what motivates you?
Man, I think that changes. I think some days I'm extremely unmotivated. I would say a lot of days are like that. And I don't really know what it is, but it's almost like, and I've had this conversation with people where it's like, I feel like, and I don't want to say this in the sense that I'm being fake, because I'm not being fake. I'm being genuine, right? When you meet me out in town, I'm really loud, I'm really obnoxious. I say hi to everybody, you know, I give hugs and all kinds of stuff. And then when I go home, I'm really tired, you know? And so I've had conversations with Nina where she's like, hey, we need to go to these people's house. I'm like, well, I need a nap, you know? I need to take a nap. And she's like, you know, you don't. It's in 20 minutes. I need a nap. And I always tell her, I'm like, you don't have to be Gabe when you get there. I do. You know, people are expecting loud, obnoxious Gabe, you know, and I love being loud, obnoxious Gabe because that's part of my personality, right?
Yeah.
But there's days where I'm just so unmotivated. And I think the worst recently has probably been like 3 days where I get up, I go to work, you know, I'm somewhat unmotivated there at times. I come home, I'll go to lay down in bed and I'll just go to sleep. It might be 6 o'clock in the afternoon. The worst one most recently, which probably maybe about earlier this year or something. Like I did that for like 3 days. And so that's when I tell you I get blue. I don't really call it depression. I just get blue. And so for 3 days, I went to work, came home, ate a little something, went to go lay down. Even though I don't fall asleep, I'm just laying down. I'm in the dark and by myself, you know. And then from time to time that happens, maybe not so long. But it's just weird because every now and then it's just like I'll wake up and I'm like, all right, let's go. You know, I've got all these ideas in my head. I function weird. If you give me 1 or 2 things to do, I'm not going to do either one of them. But if I got 20 things to do, like my mind starts structuring everything that I need to do and it starts lining things up and I start seeing a pattern. Let me do this, let me do that. Like when we were setting this up, you know, I've got to sit there, I've got to do all these things and everything happens in order. Right. So when I have multiple things to do, like my mind gets sharper and it turns on and I'm ready to go, you know? And I think maybe that's part of it, but there's not really something where I go, you know what, I'm really ambitious to do X, Y, and Z. You know, as I've gotten older, I always got really bummed out when I would realize things didn't last forever. You know, when I realized relationships weren't going to last forever, when I realized, you know, the pair of boots that are my favorite aren't going to last forever, I legitimately would get bummed out about it, you know. And slowly, as I've gotten older, I've learned some things are just a moment in time. Enjoy it, remember it, have a good time, you know, treat it well. And if you don't have it for 10 days or you don't have it for 10 years, just be glad that you had it, you know. Right. So I try and focus more on what's going on today and immediately. You know, Nina will tell me, she'll say, hey, I told you 2 weeks ago we're going to X, Y, and Z, you know. And I would tell her all the time, I'm like, well, if it's not something that's happening in the next day or two, you know, if it's not food, shelter, or sex, I'm probably not paying attention, you know? So, and that's not fair to her because now it's her job to remind me, right? But I guess that's what a calendar's for. But as far as motivation goes, I wish I could tell you I had long-term goals, but I think I used to have long-term goals. And as I've gotten older, I'm just trying to enjoy the immediate, right?
Oh, okay.
And not that I don't eventually want to set lofty long-term goals. I'm sure I will. But right now, I'm just really enjoying the things that I'm doing right now. You know, my mind's busy. You know, we were talking about my dad earlier. I'm trying to help out with him, and all the family is, and trying to keep him comfortable and motivated too. And then there's work, and there's this, and there's helping Nina get through her school, and you know all the things that she has going on. So it's like there's a lot of time that's filled, you know. So and I think there's things that go on with the world. I try and pay attention to that too, you know. But I mentally there's only so much space that I can care about, you know. Right. And if you don't land inside that space that I can care about, I can't care about it right now, you know. So we're kind of full right now.
Yeah, only so much bandwidth.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So you may have already addressed this, excuse me, but I'm going to ask you anyway. You had talked a little bit about the way that this podcast has evolved. You mentioned that it started as sort of a self-promotion, then became a pod promotion, and then became a guest promotion. What in your mind do you imagine, or would you like to see it evolve to?
You know, I think eventually in the immediate, I think I would like it to be a better quality product. You know, I don't anticipate. I would love to have, you know, a more diverse group of guests, you know, long-term-ish, from different places, maybe not just this area. But ultimately, it's very strange because of the way that it started. I'm almost content with the way that it is currently, right? So, you know, if I had my way, Bill, I would make a lot of money and only do this. That'd be amazing. Because honestly, outside of
riding motorcycles, which I can't anymore because of carpal tunnel and my hands fall asleep. Outside of motorcycles, this is the thing that I've enjoyed the most since motorcycles, you know? And so I really like this. So it's tough because, you know, people always ask the question about promoting and monetization and what you would like to do with it. And it's like, I started off just wanting to interview family and friends, you know, and now I've made friends doing this, and I enjoy talking to them. And it's like, that was always the intention, you know? So as far as this evolving into something else, a handful of folks having a conversation in a quiet room, you know, with the air condition kicked down too low. That's kind of this is where we're at right now. Is the ultimate evolution from where I started, you know? So I'm really happy with where it is right now as far as how it's done, you know, the process that it's done. I eventually better equipment, make it look better, make it more appealing to folks, hopefully try and reach more people, you know, hit topics that people want to learn from or talk about. But I don't really think about, you know, having anything that's crazier than this. You know, I think if I had all the money in the world and all the attention in the world and all the viewers in the world, I would still be in, as long as Bojan would have me, I'd still be in this room.
Right,
you know?
here doing this.
Here doing this.
That's pretty good. That's
my
amazing.
favorite thing.
That's amazing. Now, you just said that when you started, it was pretty much, if I may, my words, not yours, and correct me if I'm wrong, you wanted to get family and close friends on record, so to speak, so that there was something there after we all move on. And then you mentioned that an intention was to create new friends and to broaden it. Was that an intention that was premeditated, or did it just kind of occur to you as you came along?
No, I don't know that it was an intention. I think it was a byproduct. You know, I think one thing that was an unintention was the fact that all my friends would tell me, man, I can't be on that podcast. I can't say the things that we used to do. You know, it was very strange because I had this list of buddies that I was going to bring on, you know, and I would text them and be like, hey, let's do a podcast. No, man, I got kids, or no, man, I got a business now. And, you know, to me, it wasn't like, well, we're not going to talk about the things we did in junior high. We might, but we'll talk about current things and things now, you know. And so eventually, you know what, I might say you were the first deviation from people that I knew was the podcast with you. And so that slowly, it was kind of like, oh, Bill was cool and he's very knowledgeable. And it was like, well, maybe I can do other people than just people that I know, you know, which probably would have been 20 podcasts and I would have stopped, right? So I don't think that making new friends was an intention. It was just a byproduct of keeping the thing going, you know. Slowly, I have friends going, well, I'll do a podcast with you. Because I guess now they can kind of see what it is. Yeah. They can see it's not a complete 2 hours of being an idiot, which with them, it probably would be real close to 2 hours of being an idiot. But they're slowly starting to be more receptive to it, which I love, because now it's kind of going back to, now I can hit my hit list that I put out before I even bought equipment, right? These are the guys I'm going to hit. You know, when I get this stuff, we're going to do a podcast. And slowly there's a few of them that are like, okay, I'll do it with you, you know? And so I do look forward to that. But I think it's exposed me to people that I may not have been exposed to naturally, right? And so it's been nice, because the friendship doesn't come from just doing the podcast. The friendship comes from, hey, that's a cool dude, or that's a cool chick, you know? And she has my number. Hey, every now and then, you doing all right? How's everything going? You know, and you start to build those relationships. But yeah, it was probably going to be something real simple, and I didn't have any. Even for guests, you know, it's funny because you can kind of look at other podcasts and I can't afford to fly you anywhere, Bill. And so it was so interesting to find how many interesting people, one, that I knew, and two, they're just in Bexar County area.
Right.
A few people have driven up from South Texas, or a buddy of mine who's a trooper comes down from Killeen. A few people make a drive. A lot of times I'll follow interesting people on Instagram or something, and I'll see their come through the area. Hey, if you're in the area, holler at me if you want to do the podcast. And that's typically how that's expanded. But to me, it kind of got to the point where I do more of that because, not because I'm excited to meet Joe Blow or Jane Blow, right? Mm-hmm. It's because, oh man, this guy's cool and interesting, and I follow him and I see the neat things that he's doing. I'd like to do a podcast so other people can see it, So it's kind of, I wish that I was more selfish in how I do this thing, because there's things that people do to monetize and gain popularity, and I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm still a country boy from George West, Texas. It only had 2,600 people, so my mentality probably won't ever venture farther than that, which has been a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, don't cut yourself short. When the day comes, that certainly I hope is not any time in the near future, or in the mid-future for that matter, when it comes time for your chair to be empty, mm-hmm. How do you want to be remembered?
It depends. If I had to say, podcast-wise, I think I give people an opportunity to speak, and I like that. I like that people are willing to share stories with me and really invite me into their life, right? Mm-hmm. So when it comes to the podcast, I'd like for people to think of me as a decent dude that lended an ear and listened and gave some advice where I could. Outside of the podcast, I'm going to be remembered as the guy that people couldn't stand themselves for loving so much. Because I'm such a pain in the ass.
The guy we love to hate.
The guy we love to hate.
We hate to love, whichever way. Yeah.
I've got a handful of friends that are kind of like, well, we've been friends this long, we may as well stay friends. Yeah. So that's kind of, there's two sides of that. There's the ornery, irritating Gabe, and then there's the one who tries to sit in that chair and be patient and listen. So they're again, black and white. There's no gray.
Okay, that sounds good. So a little bit more mundane, I suppose. What is a day in the life of Gabe at the office? What do you do?
Super boring. Mm. So we've been super slow here lately, but I'm a plumbing designer for an engineering firm. Okay. And again, kind of going back to me being super lazy. And Nina's similar. Not that she's super lazy, but in this aspect of our careers, we decided to make a career out of doing things other people didn't want to do. So in the engineering industry, you go to college for and let's say MEP, because that's what I do, electrical, mechanical, plumbing. So when you go to college, there's two degrees that go into that. There's the electrical degree and there's the mechanical degree. Plumbing falls underneath mechanical. So when folks go to college and they spend all that money, they don't want to do plumbing design when they get out and they go to work. So there's this void there. And so I've never been a huge fan of school. I was always fairly decent till I got a little older, and then I got real lazy. But I'd gone to college for drafting. And so at the time, I guess drafting used to be a career maybe 50, 60 years ago. Now it's more like a tool. Now they want people to be able to design things and draw it. So I learned to draw. I didn't learn to design. So, but I'm a reasonably smart guy and probably more handsome than I need to be. But I always figured I can learn anything. Give me some time, I'll learn everything. Yeah. And so slowly I saw a void and I pursued plumbing design. But it wasn't like a passion. It wasn't something that I was looking forward to doing, or it wasn't something that I was ambitious to do. It was like, hey, nobody's doing this. Let me slip in there and do that, which has kind of been a blessing. But at the same time, if I never did it again, it wouldn't break my heart, because it wasn't a passion of mine. It was a void I saw and I filled, and I made a career out of it because nobody else wanted to do it. And then I got pretty good at it, right? So it's very strange because there was a point in time where I kind of thought, well, do I want to even do this anymore? Maybe I can do something else. But then I was like, well, I'm 46. I've spent 22 years getting pretty good at this. Why would I stop doing it now that I can do it effortlessly?
Okay.
And so then I kind of, all this kind of happens at the same time of the podcast, right? Because eventually it gets to the point where, okay, my work life, there's less stress because I'm fairly good at what I'm doing. It doesn't take much more effort anymore, and I'm pretty sharp with it. And I don't go home dreaming about jobs like I used to and not being able to sleep. So then I started refocusing my extra time to this, and I like to paint. I like to draw. So, that gave me an opportunity to kind of start doing that again, which I'm working on a painting that I've been working on way too long. I've done it twice now, I think, can't stand it because I'm letting the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just the plumbing design stuff. So typically I get up, get to work late, stare at a cubicle, wait for 5:30, go home, and then watch 90 Day Fiance. The older you get, the less you find yourself with less energy, unless you are constantly staying active, which me and Nina love to take naps. So that's usually try and get a little exercise during the week and then just kind of get to the weekend, which is not really the greatest way to live life. But at the same time, it's like you get so tired, and from projects. And then, of course, like her schoolwork and then trying to get her situated at the new place. And so lately it's been my work day is a lot less fun. I'm a lot more fun at night and on the weekends.
Okay, I can see that. So, within or outside the podcast, either way, just broaden your horizons a minute. What inspires you?
You know what? I think just ultimately, I'm super simple. And I think that's kind of what retards my growth in pretty much anything. Ultimately, I want to be a good son. I want to be a good friend. I want to be a good brother. I want to be a mediocre husband. And so like there's so many people that have really large goals and aspirations, and I admire that. And for me, I've never ventured physically and mentally very far from where I grew up. I like being able to go back home, see my family, see my friends. I'm never that far away from that, even mentally. It always took me a long time. I've struggled to make new friends, and not because of personality traits, because I'm amazing personality-wise. But like to me, it was like I don't need new friends. I just need more time to hang out with my old friends, And so for a while there, and that may have been contributing to me getting bummed out from time to time, was, my friends are busy. They're having children, they're doing this, that, and the other, starting businesses, they got jobs, go on vacation. Until maybe, I don't know, a handful of years ago, I literally thought the world revolved around me. And learned the hard way that it did not. So, I mean, I just want to be good to people that are in my immediate area. We talked earlier about, caring about, I only got so much bandwidth, right?
Right.
And for me, if you're in there, I spend a lot of time checking on people and seeing if they're okay. And, legitimately just want to, you're right. That's almost all I need. A lot of my friends from back home, we rarely see each other. But it's one of those things where when you see somebody, it's like, man, we never left. It's been 15 years, but we never left. And it's always that way. I even got an inappropriate text thread with some friends from back home that I probably haven't seen since our last reunion or even high school. And it's kind of like, but you're texting and it's the same conversations, So I'm super simplistic. I wish,
there's other people that people can look toward when they're wanting to be more ambitious. I'm not that guy. You know, you want a solid guy with some decent advice that might be a hair inappropriate. I'm the guy for you. You know, if you want to find out how to shoot for the moon, I may not be that guy for you.
That may be a matter of perspective.
Well, maybe. I again, super simple. I just try and keep things super simple, and that's my perspective on life. You know, there's been times when I was younger, I was really eager to make a dollar. You know,
Sure.
and as I've gotten older, and it happens to all of us. You know, you get older, and you start to really put things in perspective. And for me, I'm always late to the game. You know, it takes me a while to go, oh, I should have been doing this, not that. And I get a little envious of people who figure that out earlier. You know, when they figure out life lessons early, I'm like, you're on the right track. You know, because I waited too long. You know, you start thinking about times that you could have spent with loved ones and friends, you know, no, we worked late. You know, we stayed late at this job. We missed that birthday party. We missed that anniversary, and now they're gone. And it's kind of like that's when I really start to simplify things, you know, because I want a few things in my life, but I want that passion for those things to be deep. Right.
Yeah.
I'd rather, what my brother told me one time, Vidal said, what did he say? I'd rather have 4 quarters than 10 dimes. And it's true. It's true.
Interesting outlook. Yeah. You know, and I admire that because with the demands of our society and our culture today and the way things are in the world and the way we're bombarded 24/7 with information and misinformation, it's difficult in my mind to maintain that kind of, as you refer to it, a simple outlook. Okay. And I think it's more like a down to earth, trying to be real.
Yeah.
You know, and that's in my mind, that's an admirable thing to reach for.
Yeah.
And so you're on the path that you should be on.
I feel like it now. You know, I may not have in the beginning, you know, because like I said, I was chasing a career and chasing a dollar, and now I've learned the career and the dollar are second to the people I care about, you know. And when I was younger, they're the ones that sacrificed, you know, while I was trying to chase a career and a dollar. And so like I said, when people get that earlier, when they learn that lesson, maybe some people can do both. You know, I feel like I'm incapable of doing both because of my no gray area, right? So it's like some people can pursue a career and chase a dollar and still love their family and be there for folks. You know, they can do those gray areas. You know, for me, I'm either heading this way or I'm heading that way, you know, and something's going to sacrifice, you know, it's just which one. So,
yeah. Well, I think too, like we were talking about earlier with the bodybuilders, you know,
Yeah.
if you're going to aim for...
Oh, hang on, Bill, we got to call them strong men because they get real upset when you don't call them strong men.
Excuse me. Scratch that. Strong men.
Strong men.
And women.
And women. There's a whole bunch of them in there.
Let's not leave anybody out.
No.
But, you know, when you talk about being in the elite area of any branch, of any sort of endeavor, there's going to be sacrifice.
Yeah.
And so if you want to be the very best husband, the very best father, the very best at your profession, the very best at your avocation, that's going to be very difficult to balance all that.
Yeah.
There's only 24 hours in a day. Yeah. And we only have, like we said earlier, so much bandwidth.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for a balance, and I personally am not sure how to reach that, but something has to be let go if you're going to strive for the pinnacle of a specific area, I think. And so I'm not so sure the concept of, again, my words, not yours, missing the boat, so to speak, not being there when someone else got there first, so to speak. I'm not sure that's necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's also helped you to avoid heading in a direction that may not be you.
Yeah.
So, you know, so getting back into Yeah, I think a little bit more into the podcast area. What has surprised you? You've interviewed a lot of people. You've interviewed a wide range of people from what I can see, different backgrounds, different professions, different outlooks, and so on. What has surprised you?
I would say the biggest surprise is how honest and how much people are willing to share when they get the opportunity. Like growing up in a small town, we were always kind of taught to hide your dirty laundry,
Yeah.
and not that there was anything crazy to hide, but you hid your dirty laundry. And so I grew up that way, and that was always my mentality, not to expose yourself, like we talked about, not to show your ass.
Yeah.
And so that was something that I always tried to avoid, and now that I've brought people on, I have my friend James, and we did a podcast, and he shared, I knew him and his wife had problems for years, and I didn't know to what extent, and he shared everything, and it's humbling to sit in front of somebody who's willing to show you everything, and when that happens, it makes me reevaluate myself, and I go, well, why I should be willing to do the same, is it bravery? I don't know, but the willingness to share that with somebody, it's humbling. It makes me look at myself differently, and so I get to the point where I've learned from him and from other people that have shared really deep secret stuff, on a very public platform. Mm-hmm. I've learned that it's beneficial to other people, and so selfishly, when I'm trying to avoid exposing myself, I need to be able to be more open with people. Like Bob, I keep bringing Bob up. Bob shares a whole bunch, but with Bob, it's like he tells you how terrible things were, and he tells you the things that he's ashamed of. And that's only going to benefit somebody who is where Bob was 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. Maybe somebody who's just starting off in their drug addiction and lying and cheating and manipulating, if they can come across hearing somebody that's been through all that,
Right.
and can learn from it. Like you said, I've had an opportunity to learn from people. If you can learn from somebody because they were honest, why wouldn't you be honest with your story?
Exactly. Very good. Okay. So, what moves you?
90 Day Fiance, Bill. No, I'm joking. Actually, it does. But you know what? I think seeing it's super simple. And when we did our hypnotherapy session, it was all based around my friends. You made me cry, but it was always based around my friends. But to being able to see them as adults, seeing them as parents, seeing them do well, seeing them struggle, and yet seeing that they were always the person that I thought they were, that they didn't turn out to be something that I wouldn't have expected. And it's all good. Even some of the bad stuff is good, but they didn't deviate from being who they were when we were at our purest. When we were 17 in high school, screwing around, being stupid, they're still that quality of person, and that makes me feel good because I see a lot of people on social media through just following different people, and they don't have that support system that I had growing up. And it's interesting because we don't lean on each other like we probably could, but we're still available to each other. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's kind of like my buddy Bo. If I called Bo and said, Bo, I'm in jail and I need you to come bail me out, Bo would go bail me out of jail. the difference between me and Bo and other people who are friends is I won't do that to Bo, and Bo wouldn't do that to me. You know, so there's that availability, you know, to be able to have assets like that in your life, but then being capable to manage your own life to where you don't have to utilize those assets, you know. And so that's been something that I've always been proud of, is that I grew up with a great group of people, and they've turned out to be a great group of adults. And we're still close. We're still friends. We don't spend every waking minute like we did when we were kids,
Right.
but they're still there and they're still available to me. And you know, I always joke about how amazing I am, but I've always said, if you're a quality person and quality people hang around with you, then that just goes to show that yes, you're a quality person, because quality people wouldn't hang out with people that isn't a quality person. You know?
Exactly.
So in turn, Nina's gonna laugh because it always comes back to me, right? One time talking with Bob, we were talking about being selfish, and I said, Bob said, you know, all the way up here, all I could think about was, you know, we're gonna talk about me for 2 hours. And I said, Bob, the whole time you're coming up here, all I could think about was, I get to talk to Bob for 2 hours. So there's a lot of selfishness that happens, but I'm working on it. It's nice to be uncomfortable, because you grow out of discomfort. So
Right. So what is it about you that most people don't know that you wish they did?
ooh, I don't know if I wish they knew anything about me. You know what? Here lately, I put everything out there, but something that I wish they knew. I wish they knew how much I miss having interactions with them from growing up. You know, those folks, they played a big role in me growing up. You know, now people who didn't grow up with me, things that I wish they knew, I wish they knew how much damn effort this was, and they'd share their podcast. You know, I was talking to somebody the other day, and I really enjoy doing this. And I told them it's turned into a job. You know, I still got to get up, got to set everything up. You know, I'm a one-man show. I like to use the royal we, but it's not a we. You know, it's a I.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, and then there's all the cameras, there's all the editing, there's putting it together, there's uploading it, there's, you know, paying for those things to upload, there's, you know, promoting on social media. You know, it turns into a job, but it's something that I really enjoy doing. You know, I've never done anything that I've never saved a kid out of a burning building. I've never done anything cool like that. You know, I guess if what people should know is I am not exciting. You know, I don't do much outside of work, and try and do this thing. You know, I love to fish, I love to hunt, love to do those kinds of things. But ultimately, you know, when you're doing something and you're trying to make it as good as possible, you don't do much more outside of that. You know, it was funny. I was talking to Austin and Nick, the Strongmen last podcast, and one thing that they said that really stuck out to me, and it kind of was like, yeah, I get it. They talked about getting sick. They got COVID or something during COVID, and they said it had to have been somebody from the gym, because we don't go anywhere but home and to the gym. You know, and it's funny because I'm the same way. I go home, I go to work, I do the podcast. I go home, I go to work, I do the podcast. You know, so it's a lonely, boring life at times. You know, but sitting across the table with folks is it's all worth it. It's a lot of fun. You know, this is the dessert. You know, the vegetables is everything else.
Yeah. I can imagine, and it's really interesting to me that, and I certainly hope you realize that what you started off as a somewhat selfish endeavor to get people on the record before they're not here anymore, has expanded into a venue that people can learn things from, that people can open up, that people can come to you. And like you said, they bare their soul. And sometimes, in my opinion, in my profession, it makes a big difference when people are just given the opportunity to be heard. Yeah. People want to be heard.
Yeah.
And that's so hard to find these days.
You know what? I like that. I like that. You know, I'm aware of that. And I like that I can give somebody that chance. You know, I was talking to my brother. We're going to do one later this month. And he said, where do you find all your guests? And I said, dude, you want to know something stupid? I said, they're either people I already know or just people in the San Antonio area. You know, it's funny because you watch like a podcast like Joe Rogan's and you see these heavy hitters come on, you know, and they're from all over the world. Yeah. And it's awesome, you know. But at the same time, it's like there's so many people in a 20-mile radius that have tons of interesting stories, you know. And if they're willing to share and you're willing to give them an opportunity, there's so much to learn from those folks, you know. And they may not be, you know, a professor in Harvard, or they may not be a scientist, or they may not be, you know, a championship boxer, you know, but they have life experiences, you know, and some of them are pretty rare and some of them are not, but some of them are pretty rare and some of them you may learn something from, you know. And this is the important thing when people talk about learning. You know, as I always tell folks, you need to understand what you like and you need to know what you dislike. And you're not going to learn that if you don't listen, you know. I was listening to a conversation. There's a rapper. I'm slowly liking him more and more. His name's Killer Mike. Real smart guy. And he was talking about freedom of speech. And it was so interesting because his perspective was broader than most perspectives. It was freedom of speech doesn't only give the lecturer an opportunity to speak, but it gives the audience an opportunity to listen. And that's one thing that I couldn't articulate till I heard him say it. But it's like it's so important. Not only is it important for you to get your words out, but it's important for people to be able to listen to those words, right?
Absolutely.
And, you know, if it's something that they're going to keep, fine. You don't have to keep everything you hear. You don't have to keep everything you learn. You know, it's an opportunity to go, I heard that. I disagree with it. I'm leaving. I'm dumping it. You know, but at least you were able to get that information somehow. You know, and there's so many local folks with interesting stories and you know, even Cynthia Hazel, she's very interesting. You know, there's so many folks that have been a lot of fun, and it's like they're in your backyard.
They're
know?
right here.
You just got to find them, and you just got to give, you know, an opportunity. So
yeah, and I think that's another aspect of what you do that's so important is that we have a lot of talent and a lot of interesting people in arm's reach.
Yeah,
and you don't have to go overseas or, you know, find somebody who's got all the degrees and all the accolades and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
We've got some folks who have some very interesting perspectives and interesting stories. So you can learn from pretty much anybody.
Yeah.
I think you're tapping into that market.
And I'll tell you where that comes from is my very first 2 podcasts with my dad. You know, this is a man that had 5 kids, 3 wives. Dad left him when he was, I think, in the 4th grade. He quit school in the 7th, worked to take care of his mom and his sisters, you know, played Little League in broken flip-flops, you know, never really had much. Was an alcoholic for a while, did drugs for a while, found God. Now he's currently, you know, going through his issues with diabetes. And it's funny because here's a guy that is just a regular dude, but his life experiences, he's got a doctoral degree in. And it's interesting because that's where it started. And that's where I was like, well, who else can share something? Who else is just a regular person that can share something that can be profound? And, I'm open to, there's things that I'm passionate about learning about and hearing about. And I'll pursue people in those areas. But at the same time, it's him, it's James, it's Ryan, it's Bob. It's all these folks that have experienced their portion of hell, and they're willing to let you in on it, and if you can just listen and pay attention and learn something from it, it might keep you from experiencing too deep of your version of hell, so to speak, I guess. But that's where it was. Everything comes from Dad. My attitude, my silliness, my inappropriateness. Dad used to always tell us to respect one another, and because we were always hacking on each other. In my friends and family, if you're not making fun of each other, something's wrong. Yeah. And Dad would always say, you need to be respectful of each other, especially in front of other people, in front of strangers. And we would tell him, Dad, you were the one that called Grandma Gorda her whole life, which was fat girl. But it's a term of endearment, And so everything we've learned has been from him, hard lessons, good lessons. But like I said, it started off with that, There's so many people that have an experience that, if they share it with you, it's therapeutic for them, and it's education for you, so to speak, I guess.
Absolutely. So who is Gabe Molina?
Oh, man. In what way? I need a little more, just in general?
Well, let me kind of boil it down a little bit more. If you had to describe yourself, who you are, and not use any of the
profanity,
the common profanity is fine. Not use any of the common labels like family, ethnicity, race, religion, political affiliation, any of the typical profession, any of the typical kinds of labels that we put on ourselves.
Okay. Super simple and in a nutshell, and I'll elaborate. I am the type of person that will see you struggling to put together a puzzle. And I'll come sit with you. I'll have a conversation with you. I'll help you fix the puzzle. And just before we get done, I'll flip the table and I'll start laughing and pointing at you. So it's extremes, right? It goes back to the black and white. I'm a lot of fun, and my sister likes to say I shit the stick all the time. If I show up, we're gonna have a great time, but more than likely I'm gonna cancel on you. It's those kinds of extreme. I love having my people around me. I enjoy having a good time. But if I get lazy on you, I will probably cancel our good time. But if you find yourself in a pickle, I will never cancel on you, even if I feel really lazy. I rather show up to the bad shit than the good shit, right?
Okay.
Not that I don't want to enjoy the good shit with you.
For sure.
But I get a little lazy, and, I'm still trying to catch up on my stories. But yeah, I enjoy some chaos. I like when things are structured. Like we talked about earlier, I like having those boundaries, because I like to play with the boundaries. Now I want to know what they are. I want to understand them. I want to know what my rules are, but I'm going to try and deviate from them from time to time. Right. I like a little bit of defiance. I like a little kid. Me and Nina didn't have kids, so I don't have to put up with these kids. But I like when a little kid's a little ornery. I like when they put up a little bit of a fight, a little bit of a resistance, got a little bit of an attitude. Like, that's the colorfulness that I seek out. Those are the kinds of people that I enjoy. You know, I don't want to be with hang out. I don't want to hang out with folks that are a burning trash pile. But I like hanging out with that every now and then, right? But I also need those people that are super balanced. You know, I got friends that are very structured, and they don't ruffle any feathers, and I enjoy those people. But at the same time, I like to be the chaos in their lives.
So what gives you balance?
I think I just burn out sometimes, right? I get real hot and heavy. I get wild and I go over the top, and I'm real obnoxious, and then I start to fizzle out and I burn out. And now I need a break. And I think when I get that break is when I kind of come back to refocusing on my life, right? It's like I fill it with shit and then I get rid of things, and ultimately I always come back to the simple things, right? My friends, my family, my parents, God, making sure the bills are paid, making sure things are taken care of, making sure I'm doing what I need to do at work so that my stress levels are down. I start to refocus on that. And then when I get real comfortable, I start adding chaos back into it and I start all over again, And so I think I don't know if there's a balance to it, but it's almost like being a hamster on a wheel. I do this cyclical thing, I buy too many guns and ammo, and then I put them in the closet, and I watch TV, and then try and read a book, and then I come back to doing fun things, or things that I enjoy, and then I get lazy again. So this has been the only consistent thing that I've done consistently. Typically, I say that's enough. I'll do it later. I'll come back, revisit it. But this has been the thing that's been the most consistent. And I think the reason being is because I enjoy the conversation and the education.
Excellent. Well, all of this conversation leads me to a conclusion that following talking with you, you should probably do a podcast with Nina. Or maybe somebody else should do a podcast with Nina.
It's funny because we've talked about doing one. Yeah. We've talked about, and we may at some point down the road, but ultimately our podcast would end up in the area of making a baby, and so we've had that conversation. We've talked about doing it for years now. But, once you start talking about it and you think about the things that went on and things that you've endured, and, it's like you may never be ready to do that. It's going to be full of tears and crying and blubbering and all that good stuff, But in hindsight, I think this occurred to me recently, is going back to my friends, is when we were trying to have kids, people would invite us to things, kids' birthday parties, and we wouldn't go because it made us feel sad. And now that we are down the road a little bit farther, and we've kind of, it takes a while to realize you're not going to be a parent. It takes a while to realize what you've lost, and slowly we start finding ourselves coming back to wanting to interact with those friends and their kids. Right? Took a while just because it was painful. Sure. And one thing, I was thinking this in the truck the other day, I was like, how blessed am I that all these friends of mine that I've known for years, one of the greatest things they've done has been patient with us and have always shared their family with us. Always,
Nice. Yeah.
We're aunt and uncle everything, to a bunch of people. Even when we didn't deserve those titles, they still gave them to us. And so eventually, I'm hoping that we can get to the point where we start deserving those titles that they've been so patient with us in giving us. So there's that. Yeah, don't make me cry again, Bill.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's excellent. This is a lot of fun. And
I had a good time.
Yeah, this is great. It's been enlightening. It's been an honor for me to have an opportunity to sit on the other side of the table with you. Is there anything else is there anything else that you want to expose to the world?
You know what? I think less of expose and just more of tell.
Well, come on, show your ass.
I think we got a lot. I think we have, societally, I think we've allowed ourselves to get put in boxes. And because there's comfort there, you can be lazy in a box, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't have to put much effort into thought or conversation with others because you're in the box and everybody who's with you is in the same box. But I'll tell people, when you allow yourself to be put in a box, you can't ever be anything else than what's inside that box. So fight it, be defiant, and don't go into the box.
There you go. Excellent.
Do your own thing. Do your own thinking.
Very good. All
Bill,
right.
I appreciate you doing this.
Well, I appreciate you for being willing to bear it like that.
Absolutely.
So it's like I said, it's been a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hey, and thanks for being my friend.
That is my pleasure. And it's an honor for me to know that we are.
Good. Me too.
All right, sir.
Thanks, everybody.
Have an awesome weekend.
Thank you, too.
Thanks for listening to the Gabe Molina Podcast.